Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's no secret that Warzone has been sort of on a downward trend over the course of the past few seasons. Modern Warfare 3 Warzone was honestly relatively successful. It was sustaining a player base. It wasn't a super like crazy #1 most played game in the world type player base, but it was certainly sustaining players better than the launch of Warzone 2 was, which of course plummeted shortly after launch and never really picked back up. But then after we shifted into Black Ops 6 Warzone, while there was a ton of hype right away at first with the integration, it fell off as well pretty quickly, unfortunately, because of the gameplay changes, the severe bugs and glitches going on, the massive issues with bad servers and cheaters and all sorts of stuff there. And it really, ever since then, has not really picked up. There was, though, obviously a lot of hype going into season 3 because of the return to Verdansk. However, as excited as everyone was for the return of Verdansk, there was also sort of this general expectation and general assumption that yes, Verdansk has the potential to be really cool and really fun to revisit, but it by itself is not something that's going to save Warzone. There has to be more done outside of just saying, hey, here's a map you all know and love, enjoy. And it seems like, at least based off of all the gameplay, all the game time that I've put in so far in season 3 and the general sentiment with the community right now, that they've sort of established a new foundation for Warzone with the return of Verdansk and with the launch of season 3 that absolutely has the full-on chance to revive the game. So today I want to break down my initial thoughts and opinions on season 3, what they've done with this sort of reboot to Warzone, if you want to call it that, a few things that I'm a bit more worried about that I think they should address here in the coming days and weeks. Of course, as we go through this video, if there's anything I don't bring up that you think is worth mentioning, drop me a comment down below. Always appreciate all the interactions on the videos. And of course, if you guys enjoy it while we're going through everything, a like rating would be seriously appreciated. And if you want to stay in the know for everything going on in COD, so if they do go through and they address things that I bring up in this video, or as we see new updates, new announcements, reveals, all sorts of stuff like that happening, this is the place to be informed with all of it. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. So right away, the difference in what was originally Black Ops 6 Warzone and what is Warzone now with Verdansk, night and day almost. I don't think Black Ops 6 Warzone was terrible, and quite frankly, at its core, I think it's a really fun version of the game. What Warzone is now, though, is much more so a nod to the original version of Warzone, where there is a clear separation between Battle Royale and Resurgence, and Battle Royale, specifically on Verdansk, of course, plays much more similar to, I think, the peak level of Warzone that players know and love. And again, that's not to say that the different iterations were not good, maybe outside of Warzone 2. Black Ops 6 Warzone had its pros, it's had its cons as well. MW3 Warzone had a lot of pros, but it also had its cons as well. Verdansk, though, was almost a complete redo of the foundation of the game. They're changing the core mechanics, they obviously changed the content up, and I feel like this is more so okay, now we're gonna build off of this. And I think that's the most important thing, is that with where we're at now with Warzone, this needs to be the foundation going forward. It can't be okay, in a few seasons time, once COD 2025 rolls around, then it's another reset and we're gonna try something different, and then we're gonna do this and try something different. It needs to be built upon what we have now and not this sort of reinvention year after year. This most likely is what Warzone 2 should have been, right? So gameplay across the board, in my opinion, feels fantastic. It's obviously a big switch up from what we were just playing a little bit ago with just general Black Ops 6 Warzone, but I love the feel, the pacing, what they've adjusted there makes you think a little bit more about what you're doing in game, which I think overall is a good thing. It's not just mindless, pressing the W key, pressing forward on your thumbstick and just going. There's more depth to it, I would say, overall, which I think is awesome. The movement obviously is a little bit different. Yes, it is slower than what we were playing a little bit ago. Yes, it's slower than Black Ops 6 multiplayer. It's definitely still faster because of what you can do with slide cancel and just sliding in general, some of the omni movement stuff, tack sprint and everything, than what we had back in Warzone 1 with MW 2019. So it's almost playing the middle ground there. And while yes, I think it's going to take some getting used to for a lot of players, I think it's ultimately going to be a good thing where it's a nice balance between not being too fast but then also not being too slow. Overall, though, it does feel more classic, and that's just all the gameplay right now with what you're doing on the map, how you're approaching engagements, how you're approaching general gameplay, from rotations to what you want to do with your money to where you want to land. Everything like that feels more classic. The game in general right now feels a lot more rewarding. Obviously, we're back to 150 players. That's big. And so far, surprisingly, I personally haven't had huge server issues. That's not to say gunfights don't feel inconsistent, because that's still a major COD issue where the tick rate of the servers and everything just is a little bit underwhelming. And by a little bit, I mean a lot of bit underwhelming, right? So there will be coin flip gunfights that feel weird because of the servers. I'm bummed that that wasn't a major focus. I still am sitting here saying we need to upgrade the servers. That should be a massive priority, especially as you're seeing more and more people come back. We've seen the player count on Steam, the only place where we have public data, double basically since the launch of Verdansk in season 3. Other platforms probably going to follow that same trend, if not more so, since Steam is by far the smallest platform and specific play space we have for Call of Duty. So servers definitely should still be a priority, but in terms of like packet loss, packet burst, crazy stuff like that, I really haven't experienced much of that. There also obviously is still the cheating issue. Yes, season 3 saw some anti-cheat updates. I've seen some good and some bad things reported about it. I'm definitely not going to fully take the word of hackers. I don't think that's the most trustworthy community to take information from, but also neither is Activision a lot of the time. So it's like, well, I guess we just have to go off of our own experiences. Personally, I haven't run into a cheater in like 14, 15, 16 hours of gameplay. I've seen plenty of clips of them out there though, so it's not like they're non-existent. I just personally haven't run into any like blatantly obvious ones for sure, right? But that's still something that also needs to be a focus. Servers and cheaters outright need to be a priority moving forward, and that should be a core focus while they're building off of this foundation. But overall with gameplay, going back to this now, the map flows well. 150 players with the new movement, with the lack of redeploy, it's focusing more on vehicle gameplay, just like Warzone 1, which I think is fantastic. They're focusing more on knowing your rotations ahead of time, so you get out into the next zone early, you can hold players running in late against the gas. You need to be more mindful of that. With 150 players, lobbies are still holding up, well. There are zones where it's zone 4, zone 5, and there's still 20, 30, 40, 50 people up. It's pretty chaotic in some of those end zones depending on where it's going, which is good. It's not everyone's fallen off immediately after the first and second zones because there's a million redeploys, or you're only landing at a few specific spots because there's no point in going anywhere else. The flow of the game and the general gameplay right now feels fantastic. The lighting upgrades I really enjoy. Inside of buildings it looks better. The general map of Verdansk looks very good as well. I haven't seen like any direct one-to-one graphic comparisons, but overall I like the way the map looks. I like the way the map performs in general here. I do hope that they sort of are setting the tone for future weapon updates with some of the stuff they've added in with the Kilo and the AMAX and the HDR and whatnot, because those weapons feel really, really good. Sniping, especially with the HDR, is just absolutely insane. It feels just like classic Warzone 1 sniping, and because we have this faster TTK now, which I want to talk about a little bit more broadly, it does allow for stronger snipes like the HDR right now to thrive and not necessarily be crazy overpowered. And don't get me wrong, it's a really dominant gun right now. You see snipes going crazy in game with this current meta, but when you have the faster TTK with the rifles and with the SMGs and the LMGs and everything like that, it means that snipers also have a chance to be strong, because you're going to be able to get melted at 50, 60, 70 meters and 10, 20, 30 meters. But also, if you're fighting with a sniper at that distance, you have a chance to counter that quick TTK if you know what you're doing. So I think the gunplay and the balance of weapon classes there is really strong. I think it needs to be more fine-tuned, especially with MW2 and MW3 weapons. Those are lacking way behind because they weren't a focus with this TTK update, with this damage update for so many BO6 guns. But this new current weapon balance, at least between classes, feels great. As far as the TTK goes, yes, obviously it's a lot faster than what we just had during Black Ops 6 Warzone and even MW3 Warzone and whatnot. Feels a lot more like the original Warzone, where you can get melted even if you are, fully plated up and you feel like you're in good cover. Somebody hits a couple of headshots and it's just over in the snap of a finger, right? This can be good and this can be bad. I think this is, again, a foundational point, a starting point where they can fine tune this. I don't think you drastically need to slow it down some, but it could be tuned in certain situations where it's like, yeah, if I'm using an AMAX and I hit one headshot, I've legitimately felt like I've killed people in 3 bullets, which probably shouldn't be a thing. Obviously, it being a battle royale, your life being so valuable, it probably shouldn't be over in the blink of an eye unless you're getting one-shot sniped or something. So I think there's fine tuning to be done, but I think this is a great foundational start because it's an area of time to kill and it's a gameplay feel there that we are familiar with based off of classic Warzone gameplay. So overall, really happy with the product, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I've always been very hesitant going into major updates like this because, let's be honest, Call of Duty has a track record of not really doing that great when it comes to major updates. Typically they launch and they are very problematic and things are not working at all, and that for the most part was not the case this time. It was a much smoother launch than what we've seen in the past, and it really, I feel like, you know, met a lot of expectations, which is pleasantly surprising as mentioned. But there's still a lot of things that I think should be adjusted, should be worked on, things that I'm not a huge fan of currently. So shifting over into my cons, my things that are more so negative with this update. First up, the ground loot. This is a big concern because obviously we're all spending a lot of time looting up, and the weapons are not great. While they are Black Ops 6 guns, it's not the good Black Ops 6 guns. It's a lot of snipers and LMGs and pistols for whatever reason. Maybe that's just to diversify what you're going to be using, because I'm sure they know most players are going to grab a loadout and get a sniper and an SMG and an AR, and so they have a lot of Dragunovs and SVDs and DM10s and GPMGs, right? And the ground loot just doesn't feel great. The builds don't feel that great, and the weapons themselves are not some of the main ones that a lot of players are going out of their way to use or to look into. They're very much so off meta weapons or underwhelming weapons. So the ground loot fights can be a little bit awkward, I think is the best way to phrase it. It's not necessarily always bad, because there are some good builds out there. If you're getting like gold chests and whatnot, there can be some really good builds and some really good weapons, but a lot of the ground loot just feels a little bit clunky and makes some of those first few fights a little bit weird and inconsistent, I guess. Also, speaking of loot, there's a few things going on here. Money and plates. This has been a really hot topic so far, because some players are like, you know, it's okay, there's very few plates and there's not a ton of money out there. That's a good thing. That means you really have to value that stuff. Or it's hey, we have no money and we have no plates, can we get some help here? Now, they have already confirmed when I'm recording this that they are going to address the plates. They are going to fix this and add in more plates to gameplay at some point in the upcoming week. I'll keep you guys updated when they reveal more details on that, when some updates get pushed out for that, of course. So that's already being slightly addressed. The money issue, I'm kind of back and forth with, because I do think every chest should drop money. If you are landing back in 3rd zone, 4th zone, whatever the case is, and your teammates are not all up and you're trying to loot out in maybe an awkward zone because obviously the zone has shrunk some and you don't have as many options for where you're trying to land and loot up. If you're opening chests trying to scavenge together $4,000 and a chest isn't dropping any cash, that's going to be an issue, right? That's going to deter players, I feel like, a little bit. I think cash should be a guaranteed drop from every chest, even if it's just a small amount. Obviously, legendary chests should drop more cash. You should get that random off chance of getting a larger pile of money out of a normal chest. It shouldn't be a super frequent thing, but there should be the opportunity to do so. I just don't think there should be a situation where you can go 3 or 4 chests and only get 1 or 2 stacks of money, right? That's definitely a rough one. That said, on the flip side, contracts are a heavy focus right now. They are encouraging you to do as many contracts as you can, to stack the contract multiplier, to get more money, and to get more bonuses every time you complete a contract. So if you're constantly spamming that stuff, it's really easy to get a lot of cash real quick. However, with the lack of cash in the looting system and outside of the contracts, it does make regaining a lot more difficult. So it brings even more value to your life and even more stress if you lose that life the first time and happen to win a gulag or do get bought by a teammate, but then don't have enough for everyone there. So I do think they need to tune the money situation a little bit. I don't think they need to overdo it and have it so that everyone's constantly got, you know, $8,000 in hand just waiting to spend it on UAVs or whatever. But I do think there needs to be probably a little bit more than what we have now just in the general loot. Also, speaking of money, great Paul Blart Mall Cop segue into buy stations where you're trying to spend that money. I feel like there needs to be more, because as it stands right now, you'll run into situations where you're in a pretty hot area of the map, like I'll land hangars just outside a superstore, or at times in downtown, and encompassing a pretty large area like that is just one buy station. And it's not always the same buy station every single game. Sometimes they can flip their locations there. I think there's like 30 or so is what the patch notes said per game, but it does feel like the way that they're spread out and how consistently they're in some of the higher octane areas is a bit inconsistent. I think maybe upping that to 35, 36, 37 buy stations might help out a little bit more. Testing some numbers there just to see what the pacing of gameplay and what the flow is like, because there are situations where there are no buy stations anywhere near you, and you got to spend a lot of time either backtracking your footsteps or going way out of your way to find one, just because there's not consistently multiple buy stations within general areas that you're going to be traveling through consistently. So again, I think that's something that just could be tuned. And then my one last sort of critique here is just tuning the vehicles a little bit more. Like the helicopter takes off super fast. Honestly, a lot of vehicles, the second you take off with them, they are really fast, and then they slow down a little bit. The momentum is a little bit weird. It's definitely way better driving mechanics than what we had originally with Black Ops 6 Warzone, but again, I think there's a little bit of work for those as well. And as you'll see, and hopefully as I made clear throughout this whole conversation and discussion, with a lot of my cons or negatives with this update, a lot of it is just the, hey, this is a good starting point, it could be tuned more. Most of this is not like what we've seen in previous iterations, like, why is this in the game? How could anyone think this was a good idea, right? It's more so, hey, I get the point with this. I think it could be adjusted some to see if that could slightly improve things, which I think is fantastic. And that's the ultimate end point here. This is a fantastic reboot or restart period for Warzone. There is a real chance to build off of this in strong ways with the information that they've learned throughout the course of Warzone's history and make a more complete game and make a better fine-tuned and optimized game for the masses, right? Which I think is fantastic. It's not a restart in the sense of, hey, we're doing everything different with Warzone 2, or we're doing all the stuff changed with Black Ops 6. It's, we know a lot of this works. We're going to start from this and go from there, which should be a good thing. Keyword should. Time will tell what they end up doing long term, but I think this is a really, really solid redo point and revive point for Warzone as it stands. Really, really surprised at how well I think this update went, and hopefully they can continue to build off of this because it's fun. I'm having a great time. I haven't had this itch for Warzone in a long, long time. That said, that's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you're in the know for everything going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.